My father and I would spend part of my commute to high school together. And, when it was sunny, he would walk. And then when it was raining, he would drive part way before I got on the bus to go up to prep school. And he was always super efficient. So whether we were walking or he was driving, he was always pouring into me, just sharing everything that he could share. And I was just lapping it up, just sort of soaking it up, everything that he was saying when he was talking to me. It was only years later I suspected that he was a little nervous about me going up to the prep school. He really didn't understand anything about prep school, being the son of a sharecropper. Here I am in a predominantly white Catholic prep school. He didn't really know anything, but he was trying to share everything that he could share with me about ultimately what he knew. He was an electrician for PATH, Part Authority Trans-Hudson. And most of what we would talk about would revolve around the issues of race and interpersonal communication and interpersonal dynamics. That's what we would talk about. And what he taught me between 1980 and 1984, when we commuted partway together, is before you go to race, before you say somebody's doing something against you because you're black, look at some other things. Maybe they're not that bright, or maybe they've been misinformed, or maybe they just don't like you. Because everybody's not going to like you, and it may not have anything to do with skin color. Talk to me about this all the time, and I was just sort of taking it in. And what I learned is you can hold different perspectives in your mind at the same time. It doesn't always have to be one thing or another thing. You can hold different perspectives in your mind. He was also the first person that sort of taught me that my feelings may deceive me. So I should always rely on facts over feelings. He was the first person to tell me that. He didn't phrase it like that, but when I think back, that's what he taught me, and that lesson has sort of served me well. My oldest son, who's going to turn 22 at the end of the year, he's neurodivergent. I recently figured out that he was ADHD. ADHD is a little bit different than what I thought it was, because what it means is your executive functioning is impaired, and it also means your emotional regulation is also impacted. So when he gets a thought in his head, there's very little logic that's going to shake that thought out of his head. There's no personal history with him that I can refer to that might persuade him. There's no personal adversity that will dissuade him. He may, once he gets that thought in his head, he may see that it's just not going to work out, but he just can't let go of that thought. So that's what he's taught me. So my father taught me to think in different ways, and my son has taught me some people can only see things one way. Stuck is stuck. That's why we asked you to come in here and resolve this issue, because I suspect that you may be able to see the prosecutor is stuck. Homicide, 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 homicide. Now, I don't suggest he's neurodivergent, but clearly he is stuck. There was a total of 17 witnesses called in 2 days, and I'm my father's son. I try to be super efficient. I'm not trying to waste your time. I told you, I didn't want to tell you, it might go till Friday. You're going to have the case today on Thursday. Still may deliberate till Friday. Nobody can determine how long you're going to deliberate, but I don't need to be asking questions of witnesses just to be hearing myself talk, just to be asking questions. That's not even me. You heard from 17 witnesses in 2 days, and you already know it's only about 3. 3 witnesses, that's the whole case. I don't suggest they did anything wrong. They put up what they needed to put up. That's fine. 3 witnesses. Who's the first witness? Dr. Terry, the second one, Brittany Barrington, the third one, Investigator Angela Carter. That's the whole case right there. What did Brittany Barrington tell you? State's Exhibit 23. We did the measurements from the head to the shell casings. Fantastic, fantastic. What else did she tell you? Quote, the distance of the shell casings is not pertinent. It's irrelevant. If you fired a gun, what'd she tell you? If you fired a gun, one round may go over there by the door, one round may go up into the light. That's what she told you. That's what she told you. The placement of the distance of the shell casings, the placement of the shell casings is not pertinent. Now, maybe the prosecutor's going to come up here and he's going to tell you, well, pertinent and relevant aren't the same thing, even though they might be synonyms in the dictionary because the etymology, maybe he'll do that. You're bright enough to figure that out. We've been doing a lot of weird things in the last 2 days. Maybe he'll get up and do that. Not pertinent, not relevant. The rounds being there, irrelevant. Now, you already know that's irrelevant. You already know it's irrelevant. You didn't even need her to tell you that. Because when we have the head and we have the gun, whether you believe Austin fired the gun or Tori fired the gun is the same distance from the head. So where the rounds land is irrelevant because the gun is in the exact same position whether Tori shoots herself or Austin shoots her or somebody else shoots her. The gun is 10 to 12 inches and no. The barrel's parallel. I don't care how you do parallel. The barrel's parallel to the head. So you already know. Whoever pulled the trigger, where the rounds landed, is irrelevant. So I got no clue why the prosecutor tried to dislocate his shoulder up here yesterday, trying to do something crazy. Like it's the OJ case. Are you for real? Listen, you don't need to dislocate your shoulder. It's the same distance. The gun is in the same. The gun doesn't become over here. The gun doesn't. No, everything's exactly the same. The science is exactly the same. We just need to determine who pulled the trigger. So, Brittany Barrington got it exactly right. And you can use your common sense. The distance of the shell casings is not pertinent. Then investigator Angela Carter got here. Not today. Yesterday. And yesterday, as I'm listening, I thought I heard her say, you'll write it down. I thought I heard her say, I got together with some other more experienced, since I've only been there 3 weeks. That's fine. That's not a problem. More experienced, more enlightened. That's fine. I got with some other homicide investigators, and we determined, based on where the shell casings were. No, you didn't say that. The shell casings? Back to the shell casings. Let's go with anything but the location of the shell casings. Based on where the shell casings were, the shell casings have nothing to do with nothing. She built a theory by herself or with the other investigators that based on where the shell casings were, it had to be a homicide. What? It had to be. See, because watch this. If it could be a homicide, that's a not guilty. Because the judge is going to tell you after the prosecutor speaks, you got to find my client guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. All these other plausible possibilities, it had to be. Not could be. Could be is not beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. Had to be. Had to be. So, investigator Angela Carter said that yesterday, and I was like, well, we're going to have to explore that. And I was like, Judge was like, no, we're going to end for the day. I wanted to get at that last night. Today, she sort of backed off that a little bit. She didn't really get with this shell casing theory to prove homicide because you already know. The shell casings cannot tell you anything about homicide or suicide. Can't tell you anything about homicide or suicide. So we get to Dr. Terry. And I love Dr. Terry. Let me just tell you that right now. You love Dr. Terry because she's a doctor. No, I love anybody that works 70 hours a week because I understand people that work 70 hours a week. I understand that means that you probably taking 3 meals on the road. I understand that means a 14-hour day, 5 days a week, or a 12, 13-hour day, 6 days a week. I understand that means that you have to be super efficient on the weekends to get all that dry cleaning and food, because by the time you work 8 to 10, everything is closed. If you need to get your hair cut, or you need to get your car serviced, or you need to get your teeth cleaned, you got to fit that in. I love folks that work 65, 70 hours a week. Let me tell you something else about people that work 65, 70 hours a week. They got a low tolerance for foolishness. They got low patience. So when the prosecutor gets, she's acting like this because she's a doctor. No, she's acting like this because she stands alone when she works 70-hour weeks. Are you working 70-hour weeks? She's not going to have any problem with you. But when you work a 45-hour week and you keep asking her the same questions over and over and over and over, she's looking at you. Are you insane? 45-hour-week people don't question 70-hour-week people. That's how it should be. That's not how it is, but that's how it should be. That's what that's about. That's not about her being a doctor. That's not about 6,000 autopsies. That's about stop asking me the same questions over and over and over. Got no problem with you going to the lake house early on Friday. Got no problem with you going to Martini Mondays. Stop asking me the same question over and over and over and over when I'm here devoted to this and you just showing up for your job. Can't wait till 5 o'clock comes. It's because she's a doctor. No. It's because she is a premier medical examiner. Takes extreme pride in what she does. Even on the week, what she do this last weekend? Even on the weekends when she tells you she isn't working, she's working. Even on the weekends when she tells you she's not working. I just went to the office to print something else. 4 hours later. I know that when you're married, your wife tells you, don't call me until you're in the car. Because when you call me from the office and say you're leaving in 10 minutes, you're still there 3 hours later. I love people that work 65, 70, 75 hours a week. I absolutely love them. What's Dr. Terry's job? Dr. Terry's job is science. She's speaking for science. Facts over feelings. That's what she's talking about. Facts, not feelings. What's the cause of death? Gunshot wound. What's the manner of death? Undetermined. What'd she tell you in the email to Norris Lewis? But for the manipulation of the scene, this, in my opinion, is a suicide. But for the manipulation of the scene, but for the gun being removed from the scene, but for this blood trace being on her leg, which you now know is her blood and nobody else's blood, but for the manipulation of the scene, science. I'm just talking for science because I got a brain and vocal cords. Science doesn't have a brain and vocal cords. I'm speaking for science. Science tells us this is a suicide. She said, I need a volunteer. Well, who's it going to be? I got to get on the ground. That's what it is, what it is. 70 hours a week. Don't ask other people to do what you're not willing to do. That's how that works. She gets down, and what she demonstrate to us? Well, if it's a homicide and her hands are up like this, then the person has to get down, and because the barrel has to be. Won't work, won't barrel. The gun can move any kind of way, but that barrel has to be parallel with the ground for the round to enter the head and go the direction that it did. Slightly up, slightly down. So the person either has to get down here or they got to lay down. And when they lay down, they got to shoot over the arm to hit the person in the head. It doesn't matter how fantastic it is. Prosecutor going to stay stuck on what he's stuck on. And then he give you all these other theories. The picnic theory, the midnight picnic theory. That's what we got right before the end, the midnight picnic theory. We went out there for a picnic with no blanket just to look at the stars, and I got surprise shot. Pow! The picnic theory. 1,000,001 theories. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to say, oh, it might be a suicide. Don't say that. Stay stuck on anything that doesn't sound like that. And so I don't really need to talk to you for a long while because Dr. Terry told you. She's not sure. I told you the original 5 facts. Tori Lang is dead. And there's no question she got shot. And there's no question that my client puts himself there. Those aren't questions. Dr. Terry can't tell you if it's a suicide or a homicide. Dr. Terry has to be able to tell you it's a homicide in order for you to tell Austin Ford he's guilty of murder. Because it doesn't matter how little effort. This was the prosecutor question in voir dire. Well, what would you do? What would you do if somebody told you that they were suicidal? Oh, I would jump off the Empire State Building to save them. I don't know what he expects you to tell him. Some people you're not going to be able to save. I'm going to talk to you, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to save you. Same as in marriage. What you going to do if your wife tells you she's going to divorce you? I'm going to tell her you're an accountant, take 60%, have a nice day. What I'm going to do? What I'm going to tell her? Well, let's go. People are going to make the decisions that they're going to make. And the idea that Austin Ford will be found guilty of murder because he didn't do enough is almost as ridiculous as Austin Ford being found guilty of murder because he lied to the police. Charge him with lying to the police. That's fine. But please don't come up here and say, because Austin Ford lied to the police, you should find him guilty of murder. We're not here on a shoplifting case. We're not here on entering auto. We're here on the most serious thing a person can be charged with, murder. Murder. And then we get into these letters, and we get into some questions about what's going on. And you can see Tori Lang got a little bit of a chaotic life. It's a little bit of chaos. No, I understand none of the family's going to say that it's chaotic. Now, I got that. But it's a little bit of chaos. A little bit unstable financially. Boyfriend sort of doing things. He's sort of a boyfriend. He's sort of not a boyfriend. I'm on these diet pills. I'm fainting. I may or may not be taking drugs from Scoop. A little bit of a chaotic life. Mom's saying, listen, you can't stay here. You're not following rules. Grandma, auntie putting you out. They love you. They love you. And they really loving you now. They really loving you. But it's a little bit of chaos. It's a little bit of chaos. And here's the beauty when you come in this building. This is what I love about the building. If you're going to have a trial where we search for the truth, because that's what trials are about, searching for the truth, you got to tell the truth. You can't tell a half-truth and then say, hey, I'm searching for the truth. You can write on any document that you have in the back, Austin Ford lied, but you can never write guilty on the verdict form because he lied, because him lying's got nothing to do with the murder. After the prosecutor speaks to you, the judge is going to read the law to you. And, normally I talk to juries about credibility, reasonable doubt. What's reasonable doubt? Reasonable doubt is a doubt of a fair-minded, impartial juror honestly seeking the truth. It's a doubt based upon common sense and reason. It's not a vague or arbitrary doubt, but a doubt for which a reason can be given, like Dr. Terry telling you she can't tell if it's a suicide or a homicide. Based on the conflict in the evidence or gaps in the evidence, the judge is going to tell you the law about reasonable doubt. But the most interesting thing as I'm reading through the jury charges last night is the number of times I see the words facts and evidence, evidence and facts, facts and evidence in the charge that the judge is going to read to you after the prosecutor sits down. The judge is going to read this to you, and you're going to hear the judge repeat certain words throughout the charge of the court. Facts and evidence, facts and evidence, evidence and facts, facts and evidence. You're going to hear those two words over and over and over and over when the judge reads the charge to you. That's because the criminal justice system rests upon facts and evidence, not speculation, not feelings, facts and evidence. So if in fact the thing that's there was a gun, and if this and if that, that's not really how this thing works. Facts and evidence. Towards the end of the jury charge, the judge will specifically tell you the law on the role that feelings are supposed to play. She's going to read it to you. She's going to tell you that you, the jury, are not to show favor or sympathy to one party or the other. It is your duty to consider the facts objectively. That's what she's going to tell you. It is your duty to consider the facts objectively without favor, affection, or sympathy to either party. In deciding the case, you should not be influenced by sympathy or prejudice. Feelings do not play a role here. They're not supposed to. Doesn't mean we don't understand that Lang's lost a family member, but in making these decisions, we're supposed to be looking at the facts. At the very beginning of the charge that you're going to hear from the judge is going to tell you it is your responsibility, the jury, to determine the facts of the case from all of the evidence presented. You're not going to hear anything about speculation. You're not going to hear anything about hypotheticals. You're not going to hear anything about musings of the state prosecutor and committees of homicide investigators. You're not going to hear that. The judge is going to tell you your oath requires that you decide this case based on the evidence. Evidence. And then she's going to tell you evidence is the means by which any fact that is put in issue is established or disproved. Evidence, facts, evidence, facts. There's no, how do you bridge that? You bridge that with your feelings. Feelings play no role in this. We want you to use your common sense when you analyze the facts and you put the logic of the law to those facts. The law does not recognize feelings. And when you look at the evidence in the case, the facts in the case, and you put the facts with the law, the question is, has the state met their burden of proving my client's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? I contend no. Obviously. Bare suspicion, the judge is going to tell you, is not enough. And the judge is going to give you an instruction on experts. And did I consent to all their experts? There's only really one expert here. Who's that? You already know. It's Dr. Terry. Dr. Terry's the expert. The judge is going to tell you expert witnesses are those because of their training and experience possess knowledge in a particular field that is not common knowledge. There's an or after that, but I like that part. Because of their training and experience, 70 hours a week, they possess knowledge in a particular field that is not common knowledge, even to all of the investigators who might work in that field. It's not common knowledge. What she knows is not common knowledge. It doesn't matter that I try 8 homicides this year. I'm not going to have common knowledge. I'm always going to learn something when I talk to Dr. Terry. So what'd she tell you we talk about in the hall? What'd she tell you we talk about? Her vacation. Why? Because I'm normally tired when I see her. I'm on my way to something else, and I'm not asking her about some other case. So we're going to talk about how was your vacation? When are you taking yours? Soon. It might be next never. Listen, we're going to talk about not work. Why? Because her knowledge is not common. And if she's talking, I'm in student mode. Oh, I've been a prosecutor. Doesn't matter how long you've been a prosecutor. Doesn't matter. She's light years away ahead of where you are. How did she get light years? 35 years, 70 hours a week. She's light years away. Do not believe because you know her name and you can call her up that your knowledge is the same. It is not. It is not. So, do you believe Dr. Terry? Dr. Terry can't tell. She prepares a report. She's thinking about it. She's talking to the investigator. She's going back to the report. She's looking at the scene. She's looking at the scene. She's not just coming to a decision willy-nilly. She's struggling with it. Is there a way for me to definitively say suicide or homicide? Suicide or homicide? Can I definitively make that choice? And in the end, she says she cannot. Are you leaning one way or the other? Yes, she makes it clear in the email. I am leaning towards suicide, but because the scene is altered, I cannot rule out homicide. That means it's a homicide. Stuck. Not going to fix that. The judge is going to tell you, ultimately, you must believe and determine the credibility of the witnesses. You, the jury, determine the credibility of the witnesses. You can believe 100% of what a person says. You can believe 5% of what a person says. I contend there's only 3 witnesses for you to deal with, but You can believe all of Dr. Terry. You can believe none of Dr. Terry. You can do it. Fortunately for me, I'm in Gwinnett. I'm not in Philadelphia where juries just do wacko things, cuckoo bird things. I suspect you're going to look at the evidence, and I suspect that you're going to respect Dr. Terry's credentials and her experience, and you're going to, as you see, part of your determination of her credibility is you determine her personal credibility. Does she seem like a credible person, irrespective of what she does for a living? Did she appear to try to do everything she could to reach a definitive conclusion? Is she just stuck on suicide and making this thing into suicide? No. She's looking at the science and she's looking at it. Prosecutor asks her a question. There's certain points she has to concede. The science has to concede it. But the science doesn't have to concede ultimately what the prosecutor wants the science to concede. In determining the credibility of the witnesses, the judge is going to tell you that there are certain things that you may consider. One of the things that you can consider is the witnesses' means and opportunity of knowing the facts about which they testify. Knowing the facts about which they testify, how, the distance and the stippling. And does Detective Carter know anything about this? This is not common knowledge. Forget the fact that she's only been there for 3 weeks when this is her first homicide. Forget that. Does she know anything about this? Does she know anything about? So how are you challenging Terry on that? You could talk to Terry about the best salad dressings. Not this. But you, the jury, get to determine. You can consider the witness's means and opportunity of knowing the facts about which they testify. Can Detective Carter tell you anything about homicide versus suicide based on the science? Get real. You may consider the nature and the facts about which they testify. Same thing, the science. You may consider the probability or improbability of their testimony. And I'm okay with Detective Carter adopting the prosecutor's version of stuff. I'm okay with that. And he can get up here and he can dislocate his shoulder and tell you this is the way it had to be. You already know that's not true because the bullet didn't go to the back of the head to the front. It had to be at the side. But he can get up here and he can twist the gun in the most difficult way. He thinks it's diving. Like, I get more points if the dive is more difficult. No, that's not really what's going on. But he can do it. You heard from Dr. Terry. You also get to determine, when you're looking at credibility, the interest or lack of interest in the outcome of the case. I don't know if he's going to be bold enough to say Detective Carter doesn't have any interest in the case when she telling the family. Remember I asked her the question, we know you killed out of him. Why are you lying to the family? Why would you lie to the family? All he did was tell lies. I clearly knew she wasn't suicidal. Why would you tell the family that? Your job as a detective is not to side with the family. You're trying to bring closure to the family, but your job is not to side with them. Dr. Terry's trying to bring closure to the whole case, but she's not siding with the family. So it becomes clear as you listen to Detective Carter's testimony that she's siding with the family. Why? The evidence takes us where the evidence takes us. The facts take us where the facts take us. Don't worry about feelings. It's facts. And ladies and gentlemen, when you take the facts that were presented in this case, specifically the facts and the evidence from the 3 crucial witnesses in this case, it becomes crystal clear that the only just verdict in this case is not guilty, felony murder, aggravated assault, and the possession of the firearm charges, because no gun is recovered, no gun is ever seen in my client's hands, my client's DNA is not on any gun, there's no gun. What about the gun that he had? Well, we know that's not a P365. The gun that he was arrested with when he was arrested down in Clayton County, when he's bouncing from residence to residence, when he tells the detective, you know, I'm getting a gun because I want to protect my family. Look, on the night that Tori died, he was looking up guns. Sure, because he wants to have a gun to protect his family. That's perfectly understandable. He can't possess a gun because he's under the age of 21, as the detective told us, but that's perfectly understandable. Why would you take that fact that he's looking up guns and said that means he wants to kill? Oh, you stuck on that. Okay. I'm going to ask you to find my client not guilty of all the charges. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.